The 2025 League of Legends World Season just ended, with Faker and T1 claiming their 6th World Championship victory, and, of course, completing the first 3P. Now, seeing whether Faker makes it to the finals or not each season isn't the only thing fans like myself look forward to at Worlds. I'm referring, of course, to the opening ceremony, of which there have now been 14 as of 2025. Here I'm going to briefly describe each one and talk about different aspects of the production, like the music, staging, technology they used, and so on. I'll be putting them together in a tier list style, of course, which is entirely subjective, and this is all my own opinion, okay? Don't get it twisted. Let's go! It's a running gag that the first World Championship was held in Freak's basement, but really, the 2011 World Finals was held in a tiny room at DreamHack in Jönköping, Sweden. At the time, it was a cute little indie game sharing the space of esports titans like StarCraft and Counter-Strike. It's possible Riot just played the first ever League of Legends cinematic as the opening ceremony, but I couldn't find anything to confirm this. Either way, little did everyone know just how quickly the game would evolve. This time in Los Angeles, the 2012 World Finals ceremony featured an orchestra, playing the classic League of Legends theme, and we would hear the first instance of the world's orchestral theme. We would also see some player montages on screen. That looks like they were made in Final Cut. Not that that's a problem, I just can't help but notice. The choir performance, I think, is a little shaky, and out of context, I would think this is a mega church of some kind. Also, the audio from the video with the shoutcasters and crowd cheering, I think is more jarring to hear than anything, because I'm so focused on the music. Regardless, this level of production this early in Riot's history was definitely ambitious. This can promptly go in the C tier. Nothing super wrong with it, but considering what it's going up against soon, it's gotta be lower. The 2013 World Finals were in Los Angeles again, but this time in the Staples Center. This symphonic cue into Lucian's theme is a great start to the ceremony, but I think the performance gets really messy once this guy shows up. Literally, what even is this outfit? The second half of this gets so hard to listen to for me. Riot Music is well known for mixing electronic and orchestral elements together, but here I think there's way too much going on. It's a jumbled mess, and the electronic cello I think sounds way out of place. Also, what even is this song? I've heard most of Riot's music and I don't recognize this from anything. Did they compose it just for this ceremony? Either way, I know they could have done better. My only issue with this staging is this ring of flashing light sticks in the center walkway. It's pretty demanding, even with the flashing lights and footage at the front of the stage. I would have just gotten rid of these altogether and used other stage lights for these two guys. I'd put this ceremony in D tier. This is the year that changed League of Legends and the world of esports forever, as this opening ceremony would feature Imagine Dragons performing Warriors in the Seoul World Cup Stadium in Korea. This would also start the tradition of the League of Legends World's Anthem, and starting with Imagine Dragons would set the tone for these songs going forward. The ceremony begins with a wonderful display of Korean percussionists, transitioning into the League of Legends theme, as a hype reel of the competitive season plays alongside it. The music then transitions into Warriors, accompanied by the percussionists and the orchestra, which makes for a truly epic rendition of the song. My biggest issue is the performance being outdoors in broad daylight. This means none of the stage lights and pyrotechnics are fully visible, because of course the sun is brighter. And this stadium in particular is outdoors only. It doesn't have the mechanics for a closed ceiling. Now, as impressive as it is to host the finals in a stadium such as this, I can't help but feel it was too ambitious. The stage was massive, subsequently wasting this whole side of the stadium seating, which feels really painful to see. A smaller venue, or just turning all of this into a 360 stage, I think would have been better. Later on, the Summoners Cup would simply be carried onto the stage by these two guys, which is so funny to me. They didn't have to win Worlds to lift it. I would put this ceremony in middle A tier. Having to follow up Imagine Dragons is pretty tough and expensive. I think we saw the repercussions of that in the 2015 anthem as well as the opening ceremony. Despite that, I believe Riot still made it work in a great way. Worlds Collide would be the 2015 anthem, with vocals from Nikki Taylor. The opening ceremony itself would be a beautifully made video summarizing the events of the World season, with the anthem edited alongside audio of the casters, a slightly remixed version of the song, great sound effects, and all of it culminating to what I believe is still the greatest reveal of the Summoners Cup to this day. great addition to this ceremony is the in-game announcer voice actress declaring the names of the players one by one and even the coaches. While I do wish we could have seen Nicki herself sing the song live, it may not have worked as well with the ceremony itself being the video. Having her pause between sections may have felt awkward. The emotional journey of the video is really what makes it great, even if there's no actual live performance. Now compare this ceremony to the year previous. There's a despairing difference in scale. No live performers, and a song produced by Riot's own music team with a lesser-known artist. Not to mention a lack of a music video for the anthem itself. Only a visualizer. It just looks like Riot Esports were told to save money here. Hiring a big name band again would definitely break the bank. I also feel this would start a trend for Riot to seek out lesser known talent to collab with for music, which would prove to be a great strategy later on. Of course, none of those aspects have a negative impact, in my opinion. I love this ceremony. I love the anthem. Nicki's performance on the song is incredible. I would put this ceremony in A, near the bottom. This ceremony, we would see Riot try some new visuals as well as introduce the official, revamped orchestral theme for the League of Legends World Series. The 2016 anthem would be Ignite by Zed and would have a fully animated music video to go with it. This, of course, would be the norm going forward. Now, with a visibly larger budget, the final ceremony begins with an orchestra playing the world's theme, followed up by the first instance of Riot's use of holographic projection technology, making great use of a massive holonet to display visual effects of champions' silhouettes, abilities, a Hextech chest, and a bit of Summoner's Rift. The orchestra then transitions into Zed's performance of Ignite, in which he would be accompanied by the orchestra throughout for a remixed version of the song that sounds awesome. As far as Zed's performance, other than these very visible drum beats at the end, I'm not sure what he's doing, but I'm not a DJ, so I wouldn't know. This was basically the shortest EDM set he's ever done. Looks super cool though, at least. I'd put this performance in A, near the bottom. The World Finals in 2017 would be hosted in Beijing, China, in the Bird's Nest Stadium. Here we would see a scale not only similar to Season 5 Worlds, but an evolution of it. The ceremony would begin with a bunch of testimonials from a whole host of different personalities and actors and, oh my god, Dante Bosco! The sequence finishes, flashing all their faces on screen, with the last being Jay Chen. The background itself opens, transitioning us into the stadium, which is such an epic reveal. The performance begins with a bunch of backup dancers, an orchestra, and Jay Chen performing a song entirely in Chinese. Following this would be the 2017 anthem, Legends Never Die by Against the Currents, which went well beyond League of Legends in its popularity. Just before the last chorus of the song, we would see Riot's first use of augmented reality at Worlds, in the form of the Elder Dragon landing right in the middle of the stage. As the song peaks, a massive Summoner's Cup rises from the stage floor, and the teams are brought out. I gotta comment on the outfits of the dancers. I really like their look. It's simple but still distinct with cultural elements. Seeing this many of them in unison does look really epic. Their involvement doesn't end at the music performance. They're choreographed into the player introductions as well, which looks so cool. I talked earlier about how I didn't really like the 2014 ceremony being outdoors. While this is also outdoors, I think it manages to work in this instance. Comparing the 2017 stage to 2014, the shadow of the stadium itself lets the stage lights shine much better. The set pieces are integrated into the stage, the screens are bordered, and there's overall just a lot more color. And of course, the dragon looks amazing. Even now, I think this is the best example of AR that Riot has ever done. While the monolithic Summoner's Cup I think is kinda unnecessary, I don't have much to complain about. This would be the start of the opening ceremonies becoming massive productions, which would prove to be for better and worse as we'll see later on. I'd put this ceremony in middle A.
You know who it is, coming round again. You want a dose of this, right now it's KDA.
The World's Finals would return to Korea in 2018 and would have a monumental start, debuting Pop Stars by KDA as the opener, with Madison Beer, Jaira Burns, and Soyeon and Miyeon from G-Idol. As the girls would perform, we would see the next use of augmented reality, with Ari, Kaisa, Evelyn, and Akali joining them on stage, which I think looks awesome. A bit of Uncanny Valley, sure, with their faces and some stiff movement, but in large part, still a great addition to the performance. To transition, Ari would step through a portal to take us through the past of League esports. Unfortunately, there would be a pretty egregious tech issue, and the portal wouldn't load properly, making for a confusing live experience. However, the following edit showing us the new champions, skins, cinematics, cosplays, fans, and player moments of the time, accompanied by the world's theme, really is something special. That still makes me emotional today. The sequence ends with Ari delivering the Summoner's Cup to the stadium, which begins the performance of the 2018 anthem, Rise, by all these guys. It started with a lot of enthusiasm.
Welcome to the wild, no heroes and villains. Welcome to
I don't know why he's trying so hard live when the studio recording in the song sounds more nonchalant. Tell sounds good though.
make 'em remember you.
Bobby from Icon would show up for a verse and would finish the song with them. The last chorus would be extended, although I really don't think it needed to be. Also, I think Bobby could have ad-libbed less.
Pick up your weapon and face it.
He's just feeling it, I don't blame him. The finals were in the Ikean Moonhawk Stadium. I don't think I said that right. Which I feel was much easier for them to manage than the World Cup Stadium. It's a one-sided stage again, which means all of the seating behind is closed off. But that side of the stadium, I think, is hidden well. The stage layout I love. This 3-platform setup allows for some really cinematic angles. Absolutely, my favorite part of this whole performance is pop stars, which isn't a very hot take. Debuting KDA like this, not only during World Season, but at the finals opening ceremony itself, had to have felt like an astronomical risk. What if people didn't like it? And I remember catching news of a League of Legends K-pop song at the time and feeling worried that it may feel super commercial. But after seeing this ceremony live at the time, I was absolutely proven wrong. Of course, KDA would become meteoric in its popularity. In the recent ceremonies, there's been an orchestra and backup dancers. There is some drumming at the very start, but on Pop Stars, it looks like they're waiting, and on Rise, I can see them playing, but I can't hear them. To be fair, if you were there in person, you probably did. Over the live stream though, I can't hear them at all. I had to watch over this a lot to tell if they were actually playing during the songs, and not just waiting for the player introductions. The dancers absolutely rocked on Pop Stars, but on Rise, I feel like they were an afterthought. I'm gonna put the 2018 ceremony in A, just above 2017. The 2019 World's Finals would take place in Paris. The opening ceremony, starting with some really dope visual effects, leading into Valerie Broussard performing Awaken, which I've always believed was cut way too short. She sounds amazing live, and Awaken is one of my favorite original songs from Riot. Valerie would walk out in a Camille-inspired outfit, recreating Camille's entrance from the Awaken cinematic, which is beautifully done. The dancers wield light sticks in place of rifles, but the sticks really add to the vibe. During her performance, we would see some throwback footage of champions that were released that year. I think just playing the Awaken cinematic would have fit better. Valerie walks up to center stage, up to a pillar where we see a hologram Echo throw his time bomb, which is really cool. The pillar would remain there for the whole performance, and it's pretty obvious what's inside. Using some more hologram light tech for Echo's time bomb, this would start the performance of Giants by League's new champion music group, True Damage. Riot would bring on the likes of Kiki Palmer, and Soyeon from G-Idol would return. The light effects used for Echo's verse are insanely creative and so in tune to the character. The hologram light would also be used to bring the True Damage champions on stage themselves, which was a fantastic choice. The stage goes black for a moment, and crystal rock formations rise to start the 2019 anthem Phoenix, with Caitlin Russo and Chrissy Costanza making a return to perform. Caitlin ascending the stage alongside light particles, and Chrissy's entrance from pure black is gorgeous. On the second verse of the song, some dancers would do an Irelia-inspired blade dance routine, utilizing the light tech more. The dancers choreographed with the light is so well done. Then the dancers and Kaylin gang up to fire a Lux laser at Chrissy as she does her famous backwards lean. On the final chorus, the stage goes black, and the pillar finally opens, revealing the Summoner's Cup. Alongside it, both finalist teams and a whole shebang of light effects. If it weren't obvious yet, I think this ceremony is freaking epic. Consistently referencing the season's start really brings into perspective the whole year of League of Legends. While they didn't receive the same attention as KDA, the True Damage performance on its own I think is so fun to watch, even if I find this song kinda underwhelming, especially after following KDA. The hologram light tech was used to its absolute best, and I imagine has low risk of failure. Since it's all projections, the production is essentially just playing videos on the HoloNet. I'd put this performance in A tier, above the others.
挥舞手中的利刃，我的名字你了解，脑海里盘旋，声浪回响。
Returning to China, this World's Finals opening ceremony would be an infamous one. It has a good start with Lexi Liu performing as Seraphine, singing her cover of Pop Stars, which then leads into the return of KDA, and the use of augmented reality to bring the girls on stage. The opening shots of the city are super clean, while the augmented reality would have varying levels of quality. Akali in the beginning actually looks pretty good. More on this later, because I don't want to get too caught up on this just yet. What follows is a medley of other Worlds anthems that came before, starting with a mix of Ignite and Legends Never Die. Then the literal chorus of Legends Never Die, accompanied by live drums, which does sound sick as hell. Next is Rise, that's accompanied with a sword fight routine that I honestly find hard to watch. They could have just let the sizzle reel on the screens play out to the song. Ending this section is the two-way cover of Warriors, with crowds of extras on stage standing together as the Summoner's Cup is walked out. Still in its case. The crowds I have issues with, but I'll cover that later too. Wrapping up the whole ceremony is the 2020 anthem Takeover, which is entirely presented by the backup dancers, typography effects, and the player intros and walkouts. There's a marching band style drumline with it that I thought was cool. The pillar opens revealing the Summoner's Cup, and the big finale is an augmented reality Galio crash landing onto the stage revealing the players. My goodness. Of course, we have to address the elephant in the room. The COVID pandemic absolutely shot the whole production in the foot here. The fact this ceremony and this event happened in stadium at all is a miracle. I totally get the production not wanting to back down from their ambition. This is the 10th season of Worlds, a decade of history that they want to honor. I'm sure they lost a lot of time and opportunities due to lockdowns and safeguards. It's also worth noting that Lexi Liu would be the only live artist to perform on stage. None of the other featured artists on the songs More or Takeover would make an appearance. Lexi herself lived in China at the time of the World Series, while everyone else would have had to be flown in, which I imagine at the time was basically impossible. This must have been a huge downer for the production. I can only imagine what the ceremony would have looked like with everyone there, especially the girls. Speaking of, honestly, watching this VOD back 5 years later, I remember it looking worse. That said, it's still not good. The textures aren't nearly as clean as we saw on the girls in the 2018 performance. Some of the effects when they use their abilities don't look quite right, or they're not there at all. And anytime we see them up close, it's like their models were rendered in 240p. I feel like that's gotta be the case because the cameras stay super wide for most of their performance. Now, maybe the tech was misfiring during the live stream, but we know the girls could have looked a lot better. I'm sure this is due in part to whatever COVID guidelines the production had to abide by. If they had more time, they most likely would have looked better. Akali and Evelyn definitely have their moments, and Galio doesn't look super bad, I think. Maybe they could have brought out the hologram light they used before, but that would have required an entirely different setup and re-choreographing the entire ceremony. Now about the onstage crowds. I'm guessing they want to show how big League esports is with these choir formations. They didn't need to have an elaborate dance, but their choreography and lack of cohesion with their wardrobe makes it feel really try-hardy. It actually looks like they all showed up wearing whatever they put on at home. This isn't their fault. The production should give them outfits. Even with COVID guidelines in mind, this could still be possible. As I mentioned earlier with the sword fight, I think this is so cringe. This routine feels like it's trying so hard to communicate that Worlds is serious and badass, but it just makes Worlds look childish. I'm also really not feeling these dancers' outfits. They all look like they're ready to go jogging afterward. It pains me to say, but I'm putting this an F. There's way too much going on, and whatever they do bring either barely works or I don't find fun to watch. World Finals for 2021 would take place in Reykjavik, Iceland. This year would be extra special, as Worlds would line up with the premiere of Arcane, which would spearhead the opening ceremony with a whole animated sequence with Jinx and Vi, and lead into a pre-recorded sequence set in the Undercity. The Arcane album would be the musical focus, with us hearing Welcome to the Playground sung by Bia Miller. We walk through more of the Undercity, see Jinx and Vi again, then, for the first time since 2014, Imagine Dragons would appear to perform Enemy with Jit. We're then brought out of the Undercity and into Piltover, where we see the band Paris perform the 2021 anthem Burn It All Down, or at least Lindsay from Paris. Then Denzel Curry arrives for a verse. Behind him is a hex core, which opens to reveal the Summoner's Cup, and we're brought to the player stage where we see the teams standing beside it. This ceremony is definitely operating within COVID guidelines at the time, but would be done much more strictly, as there are no live performers or crowd. Also, it's in freaking Iceland. However, I would rather have this than another 2020 level disaster. I'm assuming Riot Esports knew they would need to do a pre-recorded sequence, and they absolutely took advantage of it. The live footage mixed with 2D effects and the backgrounds for the Undercity sequence look stunning. I remember watching this live at the time and questioning how much of this is animated. Using Jinx and Vi to bring us through the Undercity to Piltover, and also as transitions between songs, was really creative. The whole Arcane theme works wonderfully. Even though they're not performing live, we're just hearing the stereo recordings of the songs. Bia Miller, Imagine Dragons, Vince, and JID all had great set pieces. So why was Paris so bare bones? There's nothing around her until the dancers show up, which even then, I don't think makes a ton of sense. And their choreography, I don't find that thrilling to watch. All they had to do was put a bunch of Hextech lights around her, but at least it's not another foam sword fight. I'm putting this ceremony in B. The 2022 World Finals finally return to the West in San Francisco. The opening ceremony starts with Elder Drake circling around the stadium screen that's touching the floor. A group of dancers would kick off the whole thing, with a routine to the season start anthem, The Call, with vocals from Etta Hayes. The screen then rises to reveal the stage, more dancers, both teams, and the HoloNet. The hologram light would be used once more for all sorts of effects like Volibear's lightning. Etta herself would arrive with Kaisa to close out this part of the ceremony, in what I'm assuming is a Kaisa-inspired outfit. Shortly after, Jackson Wang arrives to perform his song Fire to the Fuse. With his whole section themed after the Empyrean skinline in the game. A plethora of stage lights and hololight effects truly make for maximum use of the arena. The dancers even have Lux stabs as props. Towards the end, Pike emerges from a portal and we see a really creative use of light and shadow to show his dagger pull. We also get a really cool guitar solo to complement the song. And the choreography for Jackson and his dancers I think is so cool to see. For the finale, we see Cassante, who puts on his Empyrean Prestige skin, who then passes the mic to Lil Nas X, cosplayed as Lux, to start the 2022 anthem Star Walking. Azir and Mecha Azir show up with some cool sound effects. The Summoner's Cup appears on stage, we don't see how, and the players walk out to the final image with them, the dancers, a giant holographic Azir, and Lil Nas X on a rising platform with pyrotechnics framing the stage. I think this is a fantastic opening ceremony. At this point, it seems the visuals at World Finals peak whenever they bring out the holographic light. It lets the production be so much more creative with the effects and choreography. Outfits for all the performers looked great, especially on Jackson Wang's set, and using the dancers as part of the player walkout is always cinematic. I put this ceremony in S. The World Finals in 2023 would return to Korea. The opening ceremony starts with a pre-recorded sequence of different players fighting their way to a portal. All the while, Legends Never Die is playing. One of the players finally makes it through, as the live stream transitions to the live stage. Which is a really epic reveal. These players would be recurring characters throughout the show, with choreography around them as though they're training to fight alongside the dancers and the music. As the chorus subsides, League's first boy band group, Heartsteel, shows up to perform their song, Paranoia, with Baekhyun, Toby Lou, Ozzy, and Cal Scrubby on stage. Crashing onto the stage with augmented reality once again are the Heartsteel champions themselves, which thankfully looks much better this time. A brief moment of silence over the stage as Mako, The World Alive, and the Glitch Mob return to perform a slower version of Rise, in which a giant AR Mordekaiser shows up to attack the player. The song ends with a guitar solo and the player getting Leona's shield. Appearing from Shadow for the finale is New Jeans to perform the 2023 anthem, Gods. They're set using more pyrotechnics and Mordekaiser returning. This time, Leona arrives to help, granting him her sword. Right before the finale is a montage of photos of all sorts of talent and personalities from across League esports and fandom. On the last chorus, the player raises their sword to Leona ult Mordekaiser, banishing him back to the death realm. I'm guessing. The chorus crescendos as AR effects and pyrotechnics fire off, with New Jeans and their dancers coming out one more time while the players rise onto stage by mechanical platforms. And of course, a guitar solo added because that's always cool. My only hiccup with this whole ceremony are some of the effects in the intro. Some of the motion isn't quite right, but that's just nitpicky. Also, the feeling I get from this intro, again, is kinda try-hardy, but since it sets up the player character for the rest of the ceremony, I'm okay with it. The use of augmented reality, again, I imagine felt extremely risky, but thankfully here, I think it's pulled off really well. There's still some janky motion, I think, but it's alright. They use AR for some of the effects as well, like the Ezreal ultimate and the waves of sunfire near the end. The background video for the Heartsteel section is awesome, with each of the guys taking their turn on screen. Using Rise again was great to hear, this time with less enthusiasm. Adding a protagonist character throughout the show made for a great storytelling experience, especially with them being integrated into the choreography of each song. Their rise to defeat Mordekaiser and getting help from Leona I thought was really fun. My favorite entrance of this whole ceremony is, of course, New Jeans showing up silhouetted as God starts playing. K-pop stars can't help but aura farm. I'd put this ceremony in A tier, below 2018. The 2024 World Finals would be hosted in London. Season 2 of Arcane would premiere around the same time, which would mean Ashniko would kick off the opening ceremony performing Paint the Town Blue. I absolutely love her section here, and all of the elements around it. At the end, we hear a line from Jinx, the stage goes black, and Tiffany Harris and Forts arrive on stage to sing the season start anthem, Still Here. That same cinematic would serve as visual inspiration for this section. The stage is draped with massive white curtains where Wolf makes an appearance. These curtains appear to be attached to her dress, and they make a clever visual to include Morgana's chains on them. On the drop of the first chorus, the curtains fall and the chains shatter to reveal Tiffany as Morgana and what looks like a Damacian hallway background for her. Forts arrives in a Kale-inspired outfit, and Aatrox makes an appearance behind them. Groups of dancers arrive as well, just as what I think are the classic summoner robes. The players would also be revealed here with their flags rising in front of them. For the finale, Linkin Park enters the stage for the 2024 anthem Heavy is the Crown, bringing a lot more pyrotechnics with them. On the bridge of the song, during Emily's This Is What You Asked For scream, the Summoner's Cup would rise from the center stage. In my opinion, the second most epic reveal of the Summoner's Cup in World's history. Linkin Park would extend the last chorus for the player walkouts as their names and roles are announced by a really dope announcer voice. The players walk out to the center stage as the last chorus finishes, the lights peak, and more pyrotechnics fire off. If it's not evident by now, I love this ceremony. First, picking Ashniko for a song for Jinx is absolute peak. Her performance is so mean and hits all punk rocker checkmarks, as long as you take out the part where she's performing for a multi-million-dollar company. Really though, the colors, outfits, and arcane-style effects make this perfect. The dancers understand the assignment too. They're going just as crazy. I love how the song starts with an orchestral accompaniment. The players are on top of the stadium and the camera whips down to take us inside. Even just this bird's eye view of Ash hitting her head while the guitar riff is going is nuts. The amount of dancers around her is important to note too, as she sings in the middle of them while they vibrate and chant around her, hyping her up. just adds to the feeling of it all. At no point does Ash's section slow down. It's an absolutely bombastic start to the ceremony. Tiffany and Fort's performance of Still Here is royal. While the dancers and visuals are great, the focus really is their voices. Tiffany's Morgana outfit is my favorite, and the curtain drop was breathtaking to see live. Linkin Park on a League of Legends world anthem is something that would have melted my mind when I was in high school. Of course, it still got me really excited when I saw it live. Revealing the Summoner's Cup to Emily's Scream feels titanic. Having Mike Shinoda announce the teams by name feels much more personal and like he actually cares about who they're playing for. And the player walkouts to the bands playing with the cool announcer voice is just epic. Needless to say, this performance goes at the top of S. No contest. It goes to show, even with all of the crazy visuals and tech of past ceremonies, all you really need is strong art direction and great performances. It's also not super fair to past ceremonies because having Ash Nico and Linkin Park in the same opening is seriously stacked. And I'm a fan of both, so this was awesome for me. That's definitely swaying my judgment, but it's my list.
As a child, you'd wait and watch from far.
Taking place in China once again, the 2025 opening ceremony would begin with Chrissy Costanza making a return to sing a medley of many of the past World's anthems, starting with Warriors, in which the dancers would walk out as well. The stage layout was really unique, with these shattered platforms that also served as screens for visuals and places for the dancers to perform. Chrissy would then sing Phoenix and transition into Legends Never Die. All the while, the stage pieces display many moments from League esports. It's also at this moment the teams would rise at the front of the stage. Taya would walk out in a LeBlanc-inspired outfit to perform the season start anthem, Bite Marks. Her live vocals sound apocalyptic, and with a giant Otacon behind her to amp things up. The stage goes black to reveal Gem for her to sing the 2025 anthem, Sacrifice. Behind her is a scene of Xin Zhao standing and kneeling in a barren field, until he starts to ascend into space with a bunch of rocks. Some of the rocks are real to make for a sort of 4D experience. Anima would rise out of the stage as well to remix the last chorus of the song. Xin transforms into Zahen behind him, and all sorts of starry lights shoot across the stage. Then the whole arena turns into an EDM set for a bit. The teams arrive on stage and are announced by name and role, with the last chorus playing as they walk out. Oh yeah, and the cup just kind of appears next to Gem at some point. After the absolute rager that was the 2024 opening ceremony, I had a feeling I wouldn't like this year's as much, and I don't. Not to the fault of any of the performers. There's just not as much additional context to the ceremony. 2024 had the added benefit of the Season 2 Arcane release and Linkin Park on the anthem. The 2025 ceremony relied on medleys once again, and I mean no disrespect, I didn't know of Gem until it was revealed she would be the artist for the 2025 anthem. All of the performances, though, are fantastic on their own. Chrissy's vocals are only getting better, Taya sounds even better live singing Bright Marks, and Gem's voice is phenomenal. The choreography for the dancers is great to watch, and the stage layout with multiple screens creates a ton of visual interest. Perhaps the biggest sin of this whole ceremony is the lack of visuals or anything for Gem's performance. But thinking more about it, it's hard to imagine choreography for a song that's much slower. Like, what would you bring out? To me, the song is more operatic, so I'm having a hard time imagining what could go here with Gem. No matter what though, her voice is absolutely the focal point. I guess they could have just played the music video to the song behind her, but the video has a very different energy compared to the song, so that probably would have been too distracting. I would put this whole ceremony in low A. There you have it, my list of all of the League of Legends World Final opening ceremonies as of 2025. Let me know what you agree with or disagree with. And if you made it to the end, you're likely as much of a League of Legends nerd as I am. So do you think T1's gonna get to Worlds again in 2026? Let's find out. Who would you want to see perform the next Worlds anthem? With Worlds set in the United States next season, I would love to see another rock band, personally. But we'll have to wait and see. I think an anthem by Poppy would be pretty interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you all next time.